Here's why losing to the Denver Nuggets was a good thing for your San Antonio Spurs. Happy Monday. Welcome back to Spurs in Focus right here on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Pocket Cast, so many other platforms, even including YouTube podcasts. Go subscribe right now. Go to the Spurs in Spurs in Focus Substack page. It's completely free, and I am your host, Jeff Garcia, longtime Spurs beat writer in San Antonio. Hope you had a great weekend. Happy Easter. All that fun stuff. You had a good time with your friends, your family, ate a lot, and just enjoyed the weekend. What are we talking about today? We're looking back at that loss to Denver. Why or why not? Was it a good thing that the Spurs picked up the L? There's some benefits to this. We're going to hear from Victor Wembanyama, or at least read from Victor Wembanyama, what he had to say about losing to Denver, and then preview tonight's Spurs-Sixers game. The Spurs are back in San Antonio, close out the regular season. 4-game homestand begins today. And we're going to have a very quick nerd moment later on. I know, but I got to do it. I mean, look behind me. Are you shocked? I think if I didn't have a nerd moment, y'all might be sending me a message saying, blink twice, Jeff, or you're in trouble. Something like that. Let's go to bring in our guest. It's Monday. You know what that means. It's Mondays with Matt right here on Spurs in Focus. He's with Spurs on Sports Illustrated. Matt, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to be here as always, especially on Easter.
Yep. Yeah. Happy Easter, by the way. Hope you had a good time as well.
Yes, you too. Happy Easter.
I was busy at work. Yeah, I was trying to catch up on some work. So it was good. I was on the phone with my mom for about at least like an hour. So I got to chat with her for Easter. So I'll remember that moment with her. I was actually at the gym. She calls me. Like, how do parents know to call at the worst times? Like, seriously, how do they know that? They always know how to call you at the worst times. But nevertheless, I took some time talking to my mom for a while on Easter Day. But you know what, Matt? Over the weekend, Spurs, Denver, they had a thrilling game. It was just awesome. And overtime, I mean, everything you needed, you got in the game. The MVPs, Wemby and Joker facing off. Thrilling game. Unfortunately, the Spurs did come out on the short end of things. But after the game, from the players, from Champagnie to Wemby, Mitch Johnson, they didn't look too rattled. They didn't look too upset about it. As a matter of fact, some of them even had smiles like Wemby did. We're going to read from what Wemby had to say in just a few minutes, Matt, but I posed a question to you right now. Was it a good thing that the Spurs lost to Denver?
It's always a funny question, right? Because it's hard to say ever for any team that a loss is a good thing. Mm-hmm. You know, all said and done, you know, it's a loss on the schedule. You know, maybe they were really chasing number one seed, and that's a little bit less likely now. You know, maybe they really wanted to have XYZ, you know, whatever they might have wanted to see, maybe they didn't see it. But you know, for argument's sake, for the point of the question, because it's very valid, you know, I think even Victor mentioned it afterward, like, you know, they kind of needed something like this. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they needed it because they were too high on themselves. I don't think they needed it because, you know, they needed to be grounded back to earth. I think, you know, they've had a grasp on how good they are and they understand that, you know, but they're not letting it take over their mindset. You know, they're still going and playing all these games, trying to push through to the end of the 82, you know, all 82. And so I think it's less about, you know, they needed to be grounded and more like, you know, here's a reality check is that, you know, if you do face this team in the playoffs, you know, you have to be prepared for everything that they're going to throw at you.
Absolutely.
And now this is 2 losses in like maybe 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks to the same team. Obviously one of them without Victor, but you know, it's more of it just tells you more of what you kind of already knew. And that if you face the team, it's going to be a very big challenge. And I think that that's something the Spurs haven't exactly experienced. This, I mean, even against Oklahoma City for 5 times, you know, they didn't have any issues there, but it seems with Denver, they're having a little bit of trouble, you know, coming over, especially when it comes to overtime, close games. And that's what the playoffs are going to be like. So I think it was less of a, you know, a good thing on paper and more of a, you know, this is important because now they understand that, you know, if they face this team, they're going to have to be almost perfect in every sense, you know, especially if those games get close.
Absolutely. Let's see what Victor Wembanyama had to say about losing to Denver. You see it on your screen there if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not, I'll read it for you. He said, this is actually post-game. He said, I think the timing for it is great. There's no better way that we could have learned. There's no better outcome from this game to learn than this. That's Victor Wembanyama following the loss to Denver. I'll leave it over your screen for a little while longer for the YouTube viewers. But Matt, you see it on your screen as well. Afterwards, the body language and then obviously what he said, you see it on your screen there, didn't look too upset. And I do agree with him. I think the timing is good. You're about to enter uncharted waters for this young squad and core. From that guy you see on your screen, Victor, to Castle, to Vassell, to Keldon, the list goes on and on. That game was very playoff-like. That was probably the closest they got to like a playoff atmosphere in the regular season. It was that game versus Denver.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the timing was perfect for them. I agree with you. I like the word you said, reality check. I like that. Yes, you're right. It is a reality check because let's face it. Sure, the Spurs had an amazing double-figure win streak. Let's be honest. They were against teams that weren't really playing for much at all. Now they faced a team that is playing for something, playoff positioning. They can now, you expect the Lakers to kind of free fall a bit, but now they can overtake the Lakers, hit that 3 seed, and be on the Spurs end of the bracket. So, they could probably avoid OKC if they want. But I mean, the point is that they were playing for something, and they gave the Spurs their best punch. And unfortunately, the Spurs went down in the last round. Overall, Matt, aside from the timing, which I think was good for the Spurs, another reason why I liked the loss is because they can actually gain confidence from the loss. And what do I mean by that? They lost to a Denver team not at their A game. They were probably playing like their B minus, B, C plus, if we're going to be a little harsh on them. The point is, even playing at the C plus to B, just anything less than an A plus game, they still took Denver to overtime. They still were able to be in the game. They were able to get a double figure lead. Fortunately, they couldn't hold it, but it just made me feel good about the Spurs' chances in a series versus Denver for them to look back like, we were playing our good game, our best game. And look, it took Denver overtime to come back from a double figure deficit to beat us. Matt, your thoughts?
I think you're right. I mean, you look at a couple key plays near the end of the game. Obviously, when they had a 2-1 with Fox and Vassell, and they messed up that alley-oop attempt.
Man. Yeah, I remember that.
That's when you have to have. Personally, I liked obviously the decision last play of regulation to give it to Victor, at least to inbound it to him.
Sure.
But I think Victor held it a little too long, in my opinion. I think he should have recognized a little sooner that let's give someone else a shot on this last play.
Yeah.
And obviously, he's proven he can hit those shots, and you trust him with the ball in his hands. But I don't know. I mean, when it's tied, when there's nothing to lose, if you miss the shot, I think you go ahead and try and find another look. But it's things like that. It's little tiny plays that separated. The Spurs could have won that game in regulation on the last shot. They could have gained some momentum there in overtime with that 2-1 fast break. I mean, it's going to come down to the little plays against the Nuggets and Jokic especially. I mean, that shot he hit over Victor with shot clock expiring. It's that shot very well could have missed because it probably shouldn't have made it. But that's the kind of player Jokic is. And so it's going to come down to these little plays. And so to your point, I mean, yeah, if you clean up those little mistakes, which is definitely, what they're going to be focusing on when they look back at this loss. I mean, they obviously want to close out the season strong, but I think the first thing they do as soon as the final buzzer of regulation hits or regular season is look back at this game. I think they're going to look at the tape for this game and start figuring out, how are we going to fare in the playoffs? And then you start looking at your matchup in the first round and you say, okay, how are we going to beat this team for the right to play the Nuggets? And so I think it's going to come down to those little tiny plays. And I think a game like that, to your point, Victor wasn't very upset. I imagine he probably was, competitively upset that they lost.
Right. Yeah.
He's not holding his head down because they lost. He's excited at the idea that he can get better and learn from this and hopefully go and put it to him the next time they face each other.
Yeah, exactly. And again, Victor wasn't the only Spur to be okay with this loss. Julian Champagnie. Here's a quote we had to say after the game. It says, a game like this is something that we needed, especially with the games we've been playing for the past week and a half, with some teams that aren't fighting for what we're fighting for. So I think that obviously we lost. That's not the outcome we wanted to leave with. But I think when we go back and watch the film, there'll be a lot of valuable things that we can take from that loss and put into what we're about to walk into, which is the playoffs. So, I mean, there you have it, from Champagnie to Johnson to we just read from Wemby. They were okay with the loss. Look, I get it. Spurs fans, you want this team to win every single game, right? Well, reality check. They're going to be playing up against teams on their level, like Denver we saw recently. You hit on something that I liked a lot right now. You said the little things. And I think that's another lesson and why I'm okay with this loss versus the Nuggets is Denver did the little things to win. They had minimal turnovers. You look at the turnover battle, it was Denver with fewer. Effective field goal percentage for the game. It was Denver shooting the ball just a little better. The 50-50 balls, little things like that. I think those are little lessons this young core of the San Antonio Spurs, playoff inexperienced Spurs players can learn from. You know what, Matt? During the game, even when the Spurs had a double-figure lead, I never said, we're good. We're good. Yeah, we could beat this Denver team. Denver has repeatedly proven they can come back from deficits. If not win, at least make it very interesting. So that's another lesson I think the Spurs learned is you cannot count out championship-tested teams that they may face in the postseason. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you're right. And that's kind of what I was saying earlier. Like, you're obviously eyeing this matchup with Denver as a playoff favorite. They're going to enter whatever series they get. I think right now it's the Suns. But I mean, that's contingent upon the Suns beating the Blazers in the play-in. They could be facing the Blazers. Who knows how the last few games are going to shake out, right? But, they're going to have to look at every squad they face, from here on out. And it goes back to what HB said a couple games ago. They're seeing these last couple weeks as dress rehearsals for the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
They get to see Denver again, and so that'll be a huge one for them as well, especially to close out the regular season. And so it's going to be stuff like that. They're going to have to look at the film and all of the things that they could be doing better. And I'm sure they already have that in mind, but it's just going to be, they're going to have to play the best basketball they've played all season, which says a lot given how well they've been playing since February, right? But that's kind of the idea is that they're going to have to bring their A game if they want to have a chance at advancing, at keeping games close. I would almost say that if they play the way they did against Denver in the playoffs, they're not getting the same overtime result. They might be exactly. And so I think they know that, and I think that they're ready and they're going to be prepared to kind of pick up the intensity a little bit with whoever they face.
Other lessons learned, playing defense for as close to 48 minutes a game. We saw Aaron Gordon just a little easy dunk, to pretty much force overtime. Yeah. They two Spurs, including Wemby, they went the wrong direction, and there's Gordon like literally by himself. Nobody was around him for a quick bucket.
It was a great play.
Yeah, it was a great play. Yeah, kudos to the Denver coaching staff there. It was a good draw up there. But again, a lesson learned from the Spurs. They gotta be crossing their T's, dotting their I's, and whatever they're about to encounter, as Champagnie said, the postseason. And look, Spurs fans, it's not the end of the world, all right? It's not. They lost to Denver. It's okay. It's okay. I'm seeing Spurs fans on social media saying, we should have beat them. And yeah, maybe they should have beat them. But in the long-term scheme of things, I think the loss to Denver will pay off for them when the games really count. Other things too, Matt, just little things like, sure, okay, they lost and that sucks, but I don't think they're going to get the 1 seed at this point now, right? They can probably just, even De'Aaron Fox said, they probably have to win 66 games, something like that, to catch up to them. So that's something to get that off their mind. Also, too, these last 4 games of the regular season, Matt, what do you think? You think Victor may take an extra day or two off because he has a little pad to still be qualified for awards. So what do you think?
I imagine he doesn't take a day off until he
interesting,
award, or until he gets the award or meets the 65 game.
Yeah,
I'm already kind of eyeing that game against Dallas as maybe a rest day for a couple of those guys. But
that's decent. Yeah,
I could see that happening for sure because it's less about what the Spurs are not capable of or what they are and aren't capable of, and more about the fact that the Thunder just aren't losing.
Exactly.
I need both of those things to happen. 2.5 games back with 4 to play, you need them to go 1-3 at least.
Yeah.
And I don't really see that happening, honestly, especially
exactly
how good that team has been too. So I think they're going to have to wait to see them in the West Finals.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see what happens. But again, look, I understand Spurs fans, Spurs In Focus watchers and viewers and listeners. An L sucks. I get it. I understand. You don't want to see this team lose, but you saw their temperament afterwards. We read for you, what they said after the game. They looked like they were okay with this. So I think this was the exact type of medicine they needed to get a last, kind of like a final lesson to give to the young Padawans. It's a nerd show here, basically, everybody. So no, don't be surprised at Padawan here. Just one more lesson from the masters, just one more lessons from those that have been there before they go into the postseason. Because look, we're gonna look at Philadelphia tonight. Could give them some run. We'll talk about that in a bit. But Dallas, Blazers, they're probably not gonna get too much of a pushback from teams in these final 4 games. But nevertheless, what do y'all think? You think this loss to Denver was the medicine the Spurs needed before the postseason? Let Matt know on X at MattGZMAN. Let me know on X at Jeff G Spurs Zone. Subscribe to Spurs in Focus on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. What else you got? A YouTube podcast, Pocket Cast, and go to the Substack, Spurs in Focus Substack, completely free. Go sign up right now. Matt, want to preview tonight's Spurs-Sixers game?
Yeah, let's do it.
Subscribe to Spurs in Focus. Resistance is futile.
All right, so your San Antonio Spurs return home for a 4-game homestand to close out the regular season, and it begins tonight versus the 76ers. Some quick background here. Let me put up my notes here. All right, so the Spurs are 1-0 versus the Sixers this season, so they'll go for the sweep there. The Spurs coming in 59-19. One more win to 60, Matt. One more win. While the Sixers are coming in at 43-35. And what else we got here? The Sixers have lost 2 straight games to the Spurs, so that bodes well for San Antonio. And for the Spurs side of things, get this, Matt. In the last 5 games, they're averaging 127 points per game. They're putting up some buckets there. Spurs Sixers tonight, Matt. I would like to see another competitive game for this Spurs team. Again, kind of like you mentioned right now, Barnes saying dress rehearsal, another dress rehearsal for the playoffs. Your thoughts?
For sure. I mean, you look at those 2 teams, they're in very different positions. Sixers are tied right now for the 6th seed and are maybe 1 loss away from falling into that play-in territory.
Yeah.
You know really well that they're not going to want to go and play in that. They'd rather get a top 6 seed. They're going to have Maxey and Embiid back. And I think I'm pretty sure both guys were out in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I know Embiid was. I don't know about Maxey, but, that game was awful, to be honest. I mean, I was over there in Philly, and it was just, great for the Spurs, but it was a terrible game to watch. I mean, it was kind of
Spurs just wrecked them, right?
It
was not even a contest. Yeah, I remember that game.
And I think it's going to be a much different story this time around. So for the Spurs' sake, looking for those intense matchups against a team that again has something to play for, I think will bode well. Obviously, you're getting your superstars back if you're Philadelphia. You like your chances. You want to go and you want to spoil a team's chance to get 60 wins, So I guess it being a closer game, definitely closer than it was the last time out. But, I think to your point, that definitely would be helpful for, especially if you have a team like Dallas down the line who doesn't really have much to play for.
Right.
Any game that you can get against teams that are really wanting to go and win and are competitive will be good.
Hey, Mavericks fans, y'all do have something to play for the lottery, so keep that in mind when you play the Spurs at the end of the season, but that's for another show here. Other little notes to look at as far as tonight's games in the matchup. You mentioned Tyrese Maxey. Get this, Matt. In 8 career games versus San Antonio, he's averaging 24.5 points per game, 5 assists per game, and nearly 5 rebounds per game. So he can be a problem for the Spurs guards. I know people are probably looking at Wemby and Embiid, as a sexy matchup there. I'm actually looking at Maxey versus the Spurs guards. That's the matchup I'm looking at. How's Castle going to handle, another elite guard in the NBA? Same for Harper and Fox as well. So those are kind of the matchups that I'm looking at too. Also, just heads up, Spurs, watch that turnover percentage, especially on the Sixers side, because the Sixers are actually 6th in the NBA and keeping turnovers to a minimal. So keep that in mind. You got to value the ball too. They have a turnover percentage at 13.7%. Again, good for 6th in the NBA. So they really don't cough up the ball too much there. As far as the Spurs side, though, the Sixers have a problem too. I think the entire league has a problem, right? Wemby. Get this, Matt. In his 4 career games versus the Sixers, 26 points per game, 11 rebounds per game, and 6 blocks per game. Incredible. Matt, I look at tonight's game. I want to see a competitive game. I got the Spurs winning, but I don't think it'll be a blowout as you witnessed in Philadelphia. I think maybe the 4th quarter they'll start separating each other out. I think the Spurs want to get 60. I mean, that's just a tremendous milestone, Matt. Matt, for argument's sake, let's just say the Spurs get the W. How big is getting 60?
It'll be huge. It'll be huge. I mean, it's one of those things where obviously the last couple of years, these wins have been hard to come by. Yeah. And you think about how Popovich and that squad put together 18 straight 50-win seasons. Just feels ridiculous. So obviously they hit that milestone already. It's honestly been a little side tangent here. Like,
yeah, it has. Yeah.
Kind of surreal just to kind of see the names of the guys now. Like Keldon Johnson passed Manu for most bench points and most games, 20-plus points off the bench. Champagnie just beat Danny Green's record. I was seeing that Castle has now tied Tim Duncan in career triple-doubles. Like, this team is really, really, really good objectively when you compare them to a team that is iconic, that won a championship, And so I think, for them to get 60 is just another milestone. You think about a couple of those squads that were challenging the Warriors, during that dynasty, a few years back. And so I think it's going to be really cool for them. I don't think it can be underestimated how much energy they're going to feel being back home, knowing that they're home for the year.
Yeah.
And so I think that'll be really nice for them. And I could see them just kind of riding that momentum, getting back on track. And I could see them winning out the final 4 games of the season, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. I mean, that'd be unprecedented for a team that many figured was a kind of a middle 40-win team. And now here they are, at least as of today, they're knocking on the door of 60. So there's that. Yeah, I think it's huge. You mentioned some of the records that this team has been breaking lately, against some of the legends of the franchise. That just tells you, it's a new chapter in Spurs history, man. It's a new chapter, and it's just amazing, because I was a part of the Tim Duncan era. I've shared with you that I still have footage I've never shared with anybody of me walking into the 2014 championship locker room, from the hallway and then entering into that locker room. And it's just surreal. So the new generation of Spurs fans hopefully will get to enjoy that moment, hopefully this season. But Matt, before we get to the nerd segment here, just real quick, you mentioned about this squad knocking on 60, possibly 64, 63, 63, excuse me. Mm-hmm. So there's that. Okay, so we had a debate recently right here on Spurs in Focus. As far as regular season only, is this one of the most dominant Spurs teams ever?
Yes.
It is?
I mean, just the numbers alone, right? The 26 and 28, the perfect February. You got Victor taking home 3 straight defensive player of the month. You have that, I guess, that February month where you got Coach of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Month, Rookie of the Month, Defensive Player. Like, this team has far outperformed expectations. And then after they did that, they continued to, they outperformed even more. Everything that we've watched this season, even going back to, I think you and I were talking about this, right? That first time they faced Thunder at home, they win. And it's like, okay, well, they're not going to win on Christmas. And then they won on Christmas.
They win again. Yeah.
And then, okay, well, they're not going to win. And then they won again, and the fact that they went to the NBA Cup final, a couple bad plays away in that fourth quarter from having that championship as well. This team has just really, really clicked and put things together way faster than anyone expected. Yeah. I think some of them wouldn't like to admit it, but, faster than even they imagined. And so I think, when you just take all in all, you got an NBA record, 7 players, if it holds, averaging double figures. Everyone's getting in on this. They're clicking, they're sharing the ball. You have a dominant star who loves the game of basketball, who's crying when they win. Like, everything about this team has just been really, really fun to watch. But I mean, to your point, yes, like they've proven to be dominant. I mean, 60 wins any season is considered elite. We go from where they were last year to now. I mean,
No, I'm with you. They are one of the best, the most dominant regular season teams in Spurs history. We didn't have a number one. I think number one, we had the 2014 team that, won the title, the revenge year. I mean, they were just annihilating. I mean, that was on a whole other level there.
Well,
that's with an aged
10-game win streak, right? 20-game win streak at the end of
And now remember they were doing that with an aged Manu and a Timmy and a Tony. So I mean, they right shot. We had this current squad. I'm pretty sure the Spurs in Focus fans will remind me here, but I think we had him like number 3. I think we had him third overall. I forgot the other team. Oh yeah, that's right. It was we had number 2, the Kawhi Leonard, LaMarcus Aldridge team that lost to the Warriors. Well, if you saw Pachulia a year, we had that team as a regular season dominant team.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we had them. Then I think we had this team right there. But hey, Spurs-Sixers tonight. What do y'all think about tonight's game? You got the Spurs getting that W, getting 60 wins or no? Let Matt know on X at Matt GZME, he's with Spurs on Sports Illustrated. Follow me on X at Jeff G Spurs Zone and go to the Substack, Spurs In Focus Substack, completely free. We got a nerd segment coming up, Matt. I'm sorry I got to put you through this, Matt. All right, it is your nerd segment right here on Spurs In Focus. And as I mentioned before, the last time Matt was on, he is a big horror fan, Terrifier fan, Art the Clown fan. By the way, Matt, just to make you feel better, in case you're wondering, he's still okay. He's still okay, Matt. Still in one piece. There you go. You can expect it. Hey, Matt, all the corners are still sharp, okay? It's still looking good. So,
all perfect.
Yeah, it's all perfect, all right? So he's going like, I miss you, Matt. Matt.
Yeah, I can go ahead and be in theme here with my glasses.
Let me see. I think there's a resemblance there.
You see?
Yep, I see it. I see it.
Yeah,
it's there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Remember, Matt did a cosplay of Art the Clown there. Hopefully, he'll do that for the next San Antonio con, whenever that is coming out. Man, by the way, Matt, my con schedule is going to get crazy starting next month.
Oh yeah,
like it's about that time, so I'm bracing for that. But by the way, Matt, yes, I'm gonna get you an Art the Clown Fiesta medal. All right, so I'll put that aside for you.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I bet you will. All right. So as I mentioned again, he's Matt's a big horror Terrifier fan. We all know that. We established that very well. All right. But he pretty much stops right there for Matt. Then I come over. I'm like, oh well, I can do this. I can go in anime. I can go this way. I can go this way. But just a quick nerd PSA. All right. Tonight begins the new series on Disney Plus, Maul Shadow Lord. I've been waiting for this moment for years. It is finally here. For a little backstory, this is going to pick up after episode 1, The Phantom Menace, after Maul got chopped in half. Supposed to die. He survived. So right. What happened to him after that moment? How did he survive it? His views on the Empire, his views on the Jedi, let's say drastically changed. Matt, I don't know if you've seen the previews, but although it's animated and, it's probably for kids. It ain't for kids. All right, I'm going to tell you that. But in the trailer, they literally show him beheading somebody just right through the throat. So there's that. So PSA, everybody, go check it out. It starts actually probably episode 1's already out right now. Time of this guy going out. Go check it out. Why do I bring this up to you? Because I'll probably be nerding out on tomorrow's episode of Spurs In Focus after I see the first episode. So heads up, do me a favor so we can talk about it right here. We can talk about it on the Substack. And, of course, we can talk about all things silver and black. He is Mr. Matt Guzman with Spurs on Sports Illustrated. Matt, tell us what's going on over there.
Yeah, well, first of all, just excited to get back in the building. I'll be there to close out the regular season and then begin this playoff stretch and see how far they can go. So can look forward to all that content from practices, from that week in between the end of the regular season and beginning of playoffs, and we'll be there for all of it. So
that's right. You want to go to his X? It's at Matt GZM, and that's probably the best way to catch up on everything that he's got cooking over there at Spurs on Sports Illustrated and so much more. Matt, by the way, also thank you for doing at least a little bit of a cosplay of Art the Clown as well. I appreciated that. I really did. Matt, as always, thank you for hopping on here every Monday, because without Matt, it's not a Mondays with Matt, right? It really isn't. So again, Matt, we appreciate it. Everybody else, we thank y'all for making Spurs In Focus your first and only spot for all things San Antonio Spurs. Cease it. Ignore everybody else. Come right here to Spurs In Focus. We'll catch you up. And the latest is going on with the silver and black as the regular season is coming to an end and the real season's about to start. Cannot wait. Subscribe, iTunes, YouTube podcasts, Spotify, YouTube podcasts, Pocket Cast, and of course, Spurs In Focus Substack, completely free. Yeah, free. Go sign up right now. There's a small possibility, not actually a big possibility, we'll be back tomorrow right here to talk all things silver and black. So for Mr. Matt Guzman, or say Matt Art the Clown Guzman, I am Jeff Garcia. Hello, now you're in focus with Spurs In Focus.